Grammar Media here with BleacherReport.com, FanSided Daily DDT.com as well. We're talking to WWE Hall of Famer Diamond Dallas Page, DDP here today. Had a WWE Biography Legends on Jake the Snake Roberts. DDP man, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man.
Thanks for taking the time to talk about Jake
I love
here
talking
today.
about Jake.
Yeah, no, I know. Especially, it's been such a crazy last 10 years. I was talking with Jake last week about this documentary and how much has changed with him, with you as well, all for the better, too, all for the positive. Can you talk about your interaction with Jake in the last couple of years, just to see where he is today, especially in light of all the health battles and everything else that he's gone through? It's really cool to see, especially just interacting with him last week.
I gotta start though with where he was for people to really understand. Because when we went down to film him for the resurrection of Jake the Snake,
Of course.
which is on Amazon Prime right now, when we went down to film him for that, my business partner Steve Yu, the director of the film, he was with me, and when we left, he said, "So what do you think?" I said, "I don't think I will ever be able to have a real conversation with my brother again." He was so far gone. It got to a point where I would say to him, "Jake, we've got to start to try to fix this. When you're about to say something, I don't care what it is, say the opposite." I mean, it was that bad. So to really understand. But once he got sober, within a year, I was like, wow, we're starting to have like intelligent conversations. But by the second year, it kept getting better. By the third year, I was like, I don't even know this Jake. Because you got to remember, I knew him through his major partying years.
Yeah.
And he was never sober. If he was, it was for short periods of time and right back at it. And in the beginning, we would have these amazing conversations about, the work and the psychology of wrestling. And because he could really zone in on that. And at some point, like I said, he lost that.
Mm-hmm. So
when it gets to 1 year, 2 years, 3 years sober, the fog is really lifting. And now I have, from 7, 8 years ago, I have these amazing conversations with him that, I never thought I'd have again. And we talk about everything from family to the kids to, football to whatever. Jake he has really risen from the ashes. And, I hope that the documentary, and I'm sure it will, portrays all of that.
And to put that in perspective with the timeline here, the resurrection of Jake Roberts, obviously the poster right behind you, like you said, available on Amazon to watch as well. That came out almost 10 years ago, which is crazy for someone who had watched it. I mean, obviously for you, it's even crazier, I'm sure. But for someone who had watched it, knowing it came out in late 2014, early 2015, we're in 2023 right now, which is wild. You talked about where Jake was at the beginning of that documentary and at the end of it. Night and day, like you said. The Jake that we get at the end of that documentary was, again, 8 years ago, which is wild. Do you see, is it a similar Jake today that it was 8 years ago? Even better, more the same?
Way better.
Yeah.
Like there's no way that he could have ever gotten with Cheryl 8 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
He had to be proven. Like in WWE, they do a lot of really positive things with people who, have addiction issues, but they got to be sober for at least a year before they entertain that. So there is you got to pay your dues. But you also know that the odds of you fall as the years go on become less and less. They're still there. It's still demons have to deal with, but you become more bankable. And Jake, like where he's at today, I mean, like it was a really big deal. Him helping Cheryl with a couple of things that had happened, when her father died and everything, and he was there for her. And that was the beginning. And I'm sure she walked very gingerly on that path, to get back towards each other. But man, they were at my Christmas party this year. And Jake's not the guy who goes to parties anymore. but he came and he had a good time, stayed a couple hours and he left. He's comfortable in every situation now. And that's the fascinating part. And, like starting, 8 or 9 years ago, like I never knew that Jake. I never knew that Aurelian Smith, who could be both people and still be the same guy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it definitely does. And especially since like looking back on the two documentaries, and people are going to see this when it comes out soon on A&E, just the perspective I think is so enlightening, and it's so imperative as well. Like looking back on, I mean, it tells a similar story as far as the life of Jake. We see that in both docs, Resurrection of Jake Roberts, and this one coming up on A&E. But I feel like to have a different perspective, looking at it from a different lens, again, a decade later when he is better and smarter and just in even a better place than he was 10 years ago, I think really helps to have that retrospection, if that makes sense, compared to even the last doc you guys did 10 years ago.
Yeah. And again, if you could have told me that Jake is like, he's like 8 weeks away from turning 68.
Yeah.
And he's living his best life.
Yeah.
Like making, and has been for the last 5 years. And every year he's made more money. Every year he's had more time with his kids. Every year he takes more time for Jake. Oh, and we did an interview probably about 7 years ago, and we're just doing a catch up. Like, where's Jake today?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I fell in love. I said, you fell in love? I go, who'd you fall in love with? He goes, myself. That's one of the biggest things people who have addiction issues or just life issues, they don't really love themselves. They don't, a lot of people think they're worthless. I deal with it on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
And all it takes is you changing that story. Like, it's that simple.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's not that simple. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
My favorite quote of all times is the repetitions of affirmations leads to belief.
Mm-hmm.
And once that belief becomes a deep conviction, things begin to happen. Now, that's the story you tell yourself. The repetitions of affirmations, that inner voice, that story that you keep telling yourself, whether it's good or bad. Repetitions of affirmations can be really bad. And for a lot of people, they're really bad, but they could change them in a heartbeat, like that fast. Change that story, change the repetitions of affirmations leads to belief. And again, once it becomes a deep conviction, things begin to happen. Now, when I saw that quote, it was on Brainy Quote.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I said it, I'd never heard him say that before. And I thought, oh my God, I know his affirmation. So I'm not going to tell you who said it, and you're a young guy, but let's see if you know it. This is what his affirmation was. I am the greatest. I am the greatest of all time. Who said that?
Dusty Rhodes?
Come on. Who's the next guy?
Ric Flair.
Not wrestling.
I'm trying to think.
The greatest of all time.
Muhammad Ali. I thought you were talking about wrestling here.
No, not wrestling.
Not Ali?
Right. Yes.
Okay.
So how do you know that? How do you know that Muhammad Ali is it?
Because like you said, he said it constantly. He was the greatest of all time.
So that's the story. And it can be that and Ali been saying since he was a kid. I mean, where's the one picture? I got where's the one of me and him locking up? I have no idea where the hell it is. Did you move it? Well, here is one of the pictures. The first time that I saw him, he saw me in a I can't believe that picture's not here. This is the second time I saw him, and he freaking says, "Get over here, Diamond." The first time we got together, and I can't find the picture right now, but here it is. He says, "Get over here."
There you go.
And he calls the lockup.
Yeah. That's incredible.
My life. And that he knew who I was a really big deal to me at the time. Yeah. 1997, I was on fire, and got to hang with him on 3 different occasions, which was really cool.
Everyone knows who you are, DDP, just as much for you did in the ring as you continue to do for people like Jake, Scott Hall, and the list goes on and on. I know lately, Big Bill, who's in AEW, has talked about the influence that you've had on him. Cody Rhodes talks about it all the time. You've mentioned Cody Rhodes and the influence you've had on him. I mean, obviously, pretty obvious answer here, but it's cool to see the influence that you've had on people's careers and, more importantly, their lives, even still to this day. That sense of satisfaction has got to either stay the same or only grow for you over time, right?
Honestly, I try not to think about it too much.
Yeah.
I really don't, because I just know I'm being me.
Yep.
And I never like to, it gets emotionally,
Sure.
emotional, So, I just I'm the kind of guy, if I tell you I'm going to do something, it's done. You don't have to think about it. It's done. And 99.9% of the time, I make the right decision. Because before I actually do what I'm about to do, I ask myself the question, how does that make me feel about me?
Mm-hmm.
If it doesn't make me feel good, I don't do it. Going to be 67 myself, in a couple of weeks. And, I am living my best life. And so is Jake. I mean, couldn't make me any happier,
And that's all that matters. And we're going to be seeing that in the documentary DDP. I'm looking forward to watching it again on A&E coming up in a couple of weeks. Happy early birthday. Happy Valentine's Day today as well. And I got to go brush up on my Muhammad Ali quotes, because clearly I haven't watched enough to not know that's who you were talking about. I heard the Dusty Rhodes accent because you've impersonated him enough. That's what I was thinking of. But I got to go brush up my Ali quotes. But DDP, thank you so much for the time, man. I appreciate it.
No, it was awesome. And I should say he was a non-wrestler, because Dusty Rhodes has been guest before, but I always finish my speaking with that.
Yeah.
Because it's an uncanny how many people know that it was Ali, and I mean, his whole story, his story is insane, like what adversities he had to overcome. And he was one of the most talented, orators and athletes on the planet.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to hearing more about it in your speeches and stuff like that, DDP. I mean, you're super inspiring. I just feel more inspired just talking to you today, and among all the other stuff that you do. So again, thanks so much for the time. I appreciate it, and keep being you. We all appreciate you.
Everybody have a great day, man.